First of all, my name is Dave McKidd, and I will be your moderator tonight, and I'm a rookie at this, so please be kind. I am pleased to see so many show up for something like this tonight. All I've been hearing about for the last week is how much voter apathy there is in Calgary. This fact that we've turned out so many people says something for us, especially when we're up against a hockey game and a rescheduled leaders debate on television. So you all are to be congratulated for showing up here to cherish one of our most precious freedoms in Canada. Really a blessing that we are able to gather tonight and do what we're going to do. On my far right, representing NDP, is Mark Power. And for the Liberal Party, he's actually not the candidate for Calgary-Centre. That's Donna Montgomery. But Mark is, Donna had a previous commitment and couldn't make it tonight, and Mark has graciously stepped in to speak for her. And on my right here is Jennifer Pollock for the Liberal Party. I think many of you are familiar with the name. She was chair of the Board of Trustees, I think, for the Board of Education. And on my left is Lee Richardson for the Conservative Party. Seems like forever. And on the far right is, and I must apologize, I really must apologize, the worst thing you can possibly do in organizing an event like this is get the name wrong, and I did. I apologize. On the format that I handed out, his name appears as William Harrison. That is wrong. It's William Hamilton, and I offer my sincere apologies to William for what I think is a major error on my part. And he will speak for the Green Party. And we will be starting with the first speaker, which will be Mark Power, who is, as I said, is going to speak for Donna Montgomery. Now, Mark is a software trainer at a small business in Calgary, Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the UC, passionate about fighting against poverty. That speaks to my heart. Protecting our public, not-for-profit healthcare system, and ensuring that all Albertans are treated equally regardless of their economic status, sexual orientation, gender, or race. Worked with and volunteered for candidates of all political persuasions at each level of government, been politically active for almost 15 years. Impressive. Actively involved in Nahi Nunshi's campaign during the 2010 municipal election, so he's a winner as well. And so on. I'm not going to read all of the things because I think you want to hear from the candidates and not me. And but I will say a few words about Donna Montgomery. Okay, she's the candidate for Calgary-Centre for the NDP. She deep roots in the CCF NDP movement. Donna Montgomery is a French immersion education assistant and a member of the Canadian Union of Public Employees. She has volunteered as membership director for a community nursery school and community league. Donna has also taught second language is in the public school system, University of Alberta and Athabasca University. An avid gardener, Donna holds a master's degree and an education degree from the University of Alberta. She and her husband Brent have 3 children. So without any further ado, I'll introduce Mark.
First thing, I want to thank Knox United Church and Ed Peterson, as well as our moderator, Dave McKidd. I think it's a tremendous honor to be here, to be able to speak on behalf of the NDP. And I really wanted to also thank the other candidates that have taken time out of their schedule, because I can only imagine how busy you guys are right now. And I think it's tremendously beneficial for democracy that we have everyone come up. And I want to, first of all, thank you for that. My name is Mark Power. I am a spokesperson for the NDP. I am not the candidate. I do not look like Donna Montgomery, and I probably don't sound like her, but I hope to do her some justice tonight. I'm so proud to be a Canadian. We're so lucky to be born here, and we're endowed with such tremendous gifts. And we don't. There's a lot of people who come here, seeking those gifts. Unfortunately, right now, I can honestly say that I'm not truly proud of our government. Our government has let us down in many ways. We've forgotten some of our most important commitments into international aid, our climate change promises. We've lost respect for democracy and for transparency. We saw this government was elected on basically saying that they wanted to bring a new level of transparency to replace what they believed, and we still believe, that the Liberals left behind, which was a legacy of a bit of corruption. Unfortunately, they've done a pretty good job of hiding behind the cloak of Stephen Harper. They don't answer our questions. They don't even want you to go to their meetings if they're not a member of the party, or they're taking a picture of some other leader. We deserve better than that. We deserve a government that actually puts people first. The NDP was created as a party that saw itself as a representative of the people who don't have a voice. Our party came from very little. We were a party of farmers and poor people. And we came up and we said, you know what, we need somebody to stand up for the people who don't get spoken for in our parliament. We don't speak and we don't come from money as a party. We've always stated that money should not determine your strength and your power in politics. And right now we've seen, unfortunately, that big money and big corporations are getting huge benefits from our government. Our government has decided that giving massive billion-dollar corporate tax cuts should come in the place of funding our healthcare system, funding our education systems, taking care of our seniors, taking care of our veterans. We have so many priorities that should be ahead of corporations, and unfortunately, we haven't made that a priority. And that's why the NDP stands proud. We know that something can be done in this country if we have the political will to do so. We've worked with other parties to try to make sure that we could accomplish something in spite of our differences. We've worked with the Liberals. We worked with Paul Martin to try to pass a budget that made a difference for Canadians. We've tried to work with Stephen Harper to prolong and make a budget that was palatable and comfortable for Canadians, and got some things done, even though we didn't always agree with everything that was in it. We decided that we were going to try to make that difference. Unfortunately, here we are today. The budget didn't address the issues. The issues of contempt came across the House, and the NDP and the other parties in the House of Commons decided that it's time to take this to the people and say, what do the people think of this? Is it okay that a government can be held in contempt for not listening, for not providing information that's beneficial, and actually not only beneficial, but is absolutely crucial to our parliamentary system? Is it fair that that ministers can write things above the signed line saying that they do not want to fund Kairos, which is a Christian peace human rights organization? Is that okay? And so that's why I come before you today, and I want to be a voice for that, a voice to say, we deserve better in Canada, we can get better, and it's time that we actually stood up and made a difference.
Excellent set of remarks. Thank you, Mark. And you did do Donna proud. I would like to introduce Jennifer Pollock. Jennifer is best known as the former chair of the Board of Trustees of the Calgary Board of Education. She was elected trustee for 3 terms, representing wards 1 and 2 in Northwest Calgary. Jennifer is the eldest daughter of playwright Sharon Pollock. She attended McDougall, King Edward, and Western Canada High School. Jennifer and her family have lived in Scarborough since 1990. She has raised 4 children, and all of whom are either at university or have graduated. She is 55 years old and spouse of lawyer Dennis Nerlin for over 30 years. As an active volunteer, Jennifer has a long history of being responsive to concerns and knowledgeable of needs in the community. She is someone who will listen and act. In the past, she has taught in Nigeria, West Africa with CUSO, officiated at the 1988 Olympics, and organized a reading roundup for children at the Calgary Stampede. Throughout the junior league, she developed school programs for ADAC with 4 hockey players. She frequently volunteered for team activities and responsibilities, and also on the board of the Trails West Hockey Association and Girls Hockey Calgary Midget Committee. With a founding director of the Power Play Institute for Hockey Prospects, she sat on school councils, home and school Calgary Parks and Recreation Board, and the Alberta School Boards Association. Currently, she is a member of the executive of the Okotoks Raiders Junior A Lacrosse Club, all sorts of sports here, and the organizing committee for the 2011 Minto Cup. Without further delay, I think it's time to listen to Jennifer, and again, not me.
Well, now you know everything about me. I don't have to tell you anything. So what I'm going to talk to you about is a little bit about why I'm convinced that we need a different way of governing our country and what that focus needs to look like. Right now, it's very important that we place people at the center of what the government does. Our productivity is affected by the worries and concerns that all of the citizens have right now. People are concerned about their health. They're concerned about the health of their family. They're concerned about their pensions in the future. They're concerned about the rising costs of energy. And they're concerned about the education of their children. When the Liberal Express went across the country last year, started here in Calgary at the Stampede, the Liberal Party started from the grassroots and listened to what it really was that people wanted. Not talking first to the corporations who don't have a vote, but talking to the people who do have a vote. Those are the people that the Liberal Party is here to represent. I have not, I don't reflect pure party lines, and I'm going to agree with my party most of the time and disagree with them some of the time. But I can tell you the framework that I see is a framework that starts by supporting people, that goes to building communities, and that focuses on the future. All of these things are the groundwork for a successful country in the future. We cannot stop what we're doing now because we don't have money. We have to look at reallocating our money now to the most important asset that we have, and that's the people of this country. It is no coincidence that the first platform for Michael Ignatieff, who has lived much of his career in university settings, is to look for education for students, starting with early childhood and preparing children when they're very young, if their mothers have to or choose to go to work, to have regulated, trained daycares and places where those children can go. Continuing through to support students at post-secondary, and not just those students who can use an income tax break because their parents pay taxes, but to support every single student who goes to university, wealthy or not, $1,000 a year for every student that will finish a 4-year degree. In addition, and I'm selecting a number of parts of the platform that reflect that focus on people, there are increases to the guaranteed income supplement for seniors. Currently, we know that amount is far below what is needed to live in Canada, and especially in Calgary. So the increase is doubling what Mr. Harper has planned in his budget. In addition, many Canadians in our economy nowadays do not have pensions. Either their companies do not have pensions, they're not unionized, they don't have pensions, especially in Alberta. And so the opportunity is going to be there that you can put contributions, small or large, into your Canada pension plan so that you will have a pension when you... Excuse me, are you giving me a sign? Okay. He told me to cut me off, sir. So,
Because we're going to collect questions from the audience later. I apologize.
oh, there's my timer. Thank
You get an extra minute. I get a
So those pensions will be there so that when I talk about women, obviously. I'm a mother. I was a stay-at-home mother before I went back to school to be a lawyer in my 40s. And I think about the mothers and the fathers at home sleeping and what they're losing sleep over, and how it is that if we help Canadians by putting ground under them, they can go and knock themselves out every day, creating, building, and working in our country to build a better country. That's where our investment in Canada has to start. Thank you.
Our next speaker this evening will be William Hamilton from the Green Party. William makes his living as a communications consultant and small business owner from a home office in Calgary's Beltline community. In his line of work, communicating with people is critical to his success. On any given day, he is writing opinion pieces for local dailies, recruiting and coordinating volunteers for community open houses, or teaching second language learners how to express themselves. But his job is clear and simple. Give people the information they need to make the right decision, give people the tools to finish the job. Just as importantly, he is an advocate for better transit and for more livable, sustainable Calgary. His background on municipal issues, inner city living, and transportation policy helps him understand your priorities as a voter in Calgary-Centre, because he believes in the future of the city and he appreciates the strength and vibrancy of its communities. Whether he's writing reports on light rail development strategies, standing before City Council to talk about transit issues, or working with people sharing a passion for making transit second nature, he understands how far Calgary's transit system has come and how far it has to go. And he understands how sorely we need a voice in Parliament that gets transit.
Thank you, David. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all so much for joining us tonight at the Knox United Church. I'm running for election as your Green Party candidate because Calgary-Centre deserves a louder voice, a stronger voice. And it's so important to be here in front of all of you right now because your voices and your ideas are a critical part of how and why a democracy works. In fact, public forums on the issues that matter to you are as old as democracy itself. You're entitled to a member of Parliament who is empowered for you and accountable to you. Public forums like this one tonight are what ensure I am empowered and accountable. So let me tell you a little bit about the ideas that matter to Calgary-Centre in this election. It's time for Calgary-Centre to be the epicenter of the smart economy this country needs to prosper in the 21st century. A smart economy features green jobs, healthy and sustainable industry, and a government that lives within its means. It's time for Calgary-Centre to be the example to Canadians of how a true democracy works in this country. In a true democracy, we live by our principles. We lead by example. We make every voice in Calgary-Centre count. And it is time for Calgary-Centre to be the showcase for the strong communities our nation can build together when we add value to our lives and live by our values. A strong community takes less income tax money out of families' pockets and helps them share the load with more flexible work and childcare solutions. A strong community makes human life in our cities humane. Supporting our elders, supporting our mental and physical health systems, supporting the urban places and common spaces that give us time for what really matters. And a strong community brings Ottawa back to the table, helping cities build and maintain the transit infrastructure and common amenities that they need to support families in their daily living. Building strong communities in Calgary-Centre demands that we be aware of the conditions on the ground. Here, in the shadows of glittering prosperity, we see the face of poverty in all its guises in Calgary-Centre, ranging from the destitution of the gutters to the devaluation of our time. Here, in the midst of our natural bounty and beauty in Calgary-Centre, we see the ugliness of addiction and homelessness, and the stark human toll these maladies extract. Our city has the plans and the tools to combat these injustices. Our province lends its support as best as it can, but the silence from Ottawa is deafening. Calgary-Centre deserves a representative who can bring your stories to Parliament and bring justice and equity to their ending. Now, to implement the smart economy, strong communities, and true democracy we need in Calgary-Centre, you're absolutely right to demand a plan. We have one. We've crunched the numbers. The Green Party of Canada is the only party running in this election to have a baseline federal budget that meets the exacting standards of bankers like TD's Tom Drummond, to have a tangible and viable plan that gets Ottawa back in the black sooner. Our budget plan hits polluters where it hurts and rewards people in Calgary-Centre who act responsibly, live sustainably, and do the right thing. We will knock 3 percentage points off the federal debt to GDP ratio in 3 years, and we will do it prudently and responsibly. The Green Fiscal Plan puts people and their families in Calgary-Centre on our shoulders, where they belong. The Green Party of Canada has a platform and a plan that serves Calgary's aspirations and immediate needs. Our plan for a smart economy draws on the drive and the dynamism that attracts people to Calgary-Centre. Our plan for strong communities builds on the urban vibrancy and sustainability that the people of Calgary-Centre seek in choosing to live here. And our plan for true democracy speaks to the vision and the values that so many of us in Calgary-Centre share. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to put Calgary-Centre first. On May 2nd, help me turn Calgary-Centre green.
I should point out, although appearances may appear different, that there was a random order to the selection of the speaking order. Everyone drew a number from this bowl. But last and certainly not least, it is my pleasure to introduce Lee Richardson, the Conservative candidate for Calgary-Centre. Lee was first elected to the House of Commons as a member for Calgary South East in 1988. He was re-elected in 2004, 2006, and 2008 to represent this constituency of Calgary-Centre. He was elected as chair of the House of Commons Standing Committee on International Trade in the current session of Parliament. Prior to entering Parliament in 1988, Mr. Richardson was Deputy Chief of Staff in the Prime Minister's office and Special Advisor to the Prime Minister on Western Affairs. From 1979 to 1983, Mr. Richardson was Chief of Staff to Alberta Premier Peter Lougheed. As a parliamentarian, Mr. Richardson served as Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Communications and as Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport. He was instrumental in relocating the National Energy Board to Calgary and placing the Calgary International Airport under local authority. Mr. Richardson is president of Lee Richardson Financial Corporation. He is chairman of the board of STI Streetlight Alliance, a publicly traded technology company. Mr. Richardson served as a director of the 1988 Winter Olympics and on the board of Southminster United Church. He was chair of the advisory board to the University of Calgary Institute for the Humanities and was on the faculty of the Banff Centre for Management for 10 years. He is on the Calgary Stampede Board of Directors and is a Calgary Flames ambassador. Mr. Richardson received the Queen Elizabeth II Silver Jubilee Medal in 1977 in recognition of worthy and devoted service, and a number of other medals and awards that I will cut short here in the interest of listening to Mr. Richardson and not me again, but a very impressive resume.
Thank you, David. Well, I also want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and David for your efforts on short notice. This campaign has started off a little slower than usual. We weren't expecting an election campaign. We're usually a little better organized than this, and we've had lots of practice, having been as David said, the Member of Parliament here for the last 3 elections. This is our 4th in Calgary-Centre. We didn't want an election, but that has been forced upon us, so we're playing catch up with the election campaign. I wanted to say as well that I am a representative of the people of Calgary-Centre. Most of you who live in Calgary-Centre will have been in touch with me or had the opportunity to be in touch with me for the last 7 years. I do a lot of communicating in the riding. I do regular events in the riding every week. I try to communicate with every constituent at least once a month by way of a newsletter or householder soliciting points of view. I get a couple of thousand replies a month, and I guess that's been going on for 7 years. We go through a lot of mail, and I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what are the things that concern my riding particularly, and what local issues are important to them. I've always felt sort of fortunate in that way, because I think growing up here, I've lived in Calgary all my life, except for the time I spent in Ottawa or with Premier Lougheed in Edmonton, or away at school. 63 years in Calgary, and kind of have grown up with the city. And I just have a sense, because of the inputs and growing up here and knowing this town and the people that make the city what it's become, I think it's just natural that how I feel about issues, what I think are important, are so often shared by a vast majority of my neighbors and friends and people I grew up with, people my kids went to school with, people who I went to school with. And so I often am able to pretty much speak my mind without having to think too much about it, because that is a representative view of my riding. I have to think that a lot agree with me. We've been re-elected, as I say, 3 times here, and with increasing majorities. I think that people are generally satisfied with the level of service we get. I'm blessed with a wonderful staff here in a minority government. It's caused me to be in Ottawa a lot more than I have to be, or would like to be. But I have a great staff here who have received all kinds of accolades from constituents for the good work they do on my behalf when I'm not able to be in Calgary all the time. I like to come back as often as I can. I do come back every weekend when Parliament's sitting and spend time here. I have one daughter still left at home in university, and I like to get home and see that the house is still standing as well. In terms of issues, I think generally, again, those that are familiar with my material and over the years and have expressed an interest to me know what the issues are and what we've done with. I'm a member of Parliament. We are representing Calgary in the big picture, and we deal with national issues pretty much. But there are those issues that affect us, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to do through the Economic Action Plan, and have seen some dramatic results in Calgary, particularly in the last 2 years. The 2 areas that are closest to me in the last, since the last election, have been crime, street crime. I get more concerns expressed about that, particularly in the inner city, and about homelessness. And with regard to crime, I began this on a task force 3 years ago with Police Chief Rick Hansen and our Minister of Justice provincially, Alison Redford, to bring the 3 levels of government together to try to solve some of the problems and people falling through the cracks between jurisdictions. There is certainly a sentiment that we want to help rehabilitate people who have gone astray, but it was getting to a point where many in Calgary were concerned about people just losing respect for the law and thumbing their nose at authority and the law in the country. And we've made some changes. We drafted 3 bills in this committee right here in Calgary. 2 of them have been passed in Parliament. Those are about doing, if you do the crime, you do the time. And we are keeping some of these residual criminals, recidivist criminals, in jail rather than on the streets recommitting crimes. That was one of them. The other one is the homeless issues we've had. I am on the board of the Homeless Foundation.
Time, sir.
Thank you. And I'm very proud of the work we've done. Calgary is setting the trend for Canada in relieving homelessness. We will achieve our goal of ending homelessness in Calgary within 10 years. Thank you.
I would point out that there is coffee at the back if anyone should be getting thirsty. Before we start, I'll just say a couple of words about the format, although most of you have probably read them by now. We're going to try to rotate questions through each of our 4 panel members here in order, so that each one has an equal amount of airtime and a chance to be heard. So I would ask that when you wish to ask a question, you direct it to a particular candidate, and I will probably ask for questions for so-and-so, and then someone else as the evening progresses. The candidate will have 2 minutes to reply to the question, and each of the other 3 candidates can have 30 seconds for rebuttal if they so desire. And then we'll go on to the next question. I ask that you treat our guests here at Knox with respect and civility. They are our guests, and anybody who is getting obnoxious will be cut off by me. So please try to be respectful. And with that, we'll start with the first question, and I think we'll start with a question for the NDP. Does someone have a question for the NDP?
I have some. I'll ask one. I'm a small business owner. I'm a dentist.
There's a microphone if you wish.
Okay, well, depends. I'm a small business owner, and I'm having some difficulty understanding what the NDP's plans are for both raising the taxes, but also helping small business. I'm looking at taxes going from a corporation, say from 16 to 19%. I can see that having a huge impact on me, and I'll just pass it on to my customers. I'm not looking at wanting to hire more staff, so just giving some extra money to hire someone, but still having to pay full salary for the rest of the year, I don't see a benefit there. So what if you could just clarify how you're going to help small business and also do the taxes that you have intended?
Awesome. First thing, I want to thank you for your question. The NDP's actually put forward a plan where we plan to actually cut small business taxes from 11% to 9%. We do, for people who are looking to hire, we're offering incentives up to $4,500 to make sure that you not only hire new staff, but you retain them, so it comes with a bonus. And the NDP has consistently said that a small business is the foundation of what our economy is built upon. They're the jobs that stay here for the longest. They're the companies, they're the businesses that actually become pillars of our community. I work for a small business myself. Our company goes out and does blood drives. Unfortunately, because I'm gay, I can't actually do it. We also go out and we clean up the river at Memorial. We do as much as we can to actually become part of a community and to give jobs that will last for a long time, that are based on humanity rather than just being a number, as if you were with a massive corporation. So I understand that historically the NDP has been painted as a party that's somehow anti-small business, but that couldn't be further from the truth. We absolutely support small businesses. We know that they need to be not only fostered, they need to be taken care of going forward. So, but thank you for your question.
Candidates wish to answer or comment? You have 30
Sure.
seconds.
I'm not sure of the NDP platform that you were talking about, but certainly the taxes that the Liberal Party is talking about are the taxes for the largest corporations. That isn't a tax that would be increasing on small business. There's no plan to do that. And the other break, if I would say, I don't know if it's for small business, but it is for youth. And it's a plan to give incentives for hiring youth. And that plan is estimated to invest $300 million over the next 2 years to put in place a youth hiring incentive.
Thank you very much. Lee or William? Okay.
I'll add
Okay.
a comment, because I think it goes to one of the main thrusts of this election campaign, and that is to continue on the successful economic path that we're on in Canada, or revert to less successful ways. We have, I think, outside of the House of Commons, you will find, as the chair of the International Trade has given me an opportunity to travel around the world considerably, and we do free trade agreements, we open up the economy, we expand our trading relationships, but also we have to build the environment in Canada for success and growth in our economy. We've done this by lowering taxes. We're now a low-tax-based economy. We're having large corporations move into Canada. These corporations aren't just some evil monster out there. These are the people that employ Canadians, who create jobs, who create the wealth in our country. And that's the difference in our policy.
William?
Thank you, David. Just to jump in quickly on this point, the real issue with small business is that I'm a small business owner myself. I understand how important small businesses are to our economy, and what we need to do is make sure that we can create a smart economy where we are actually dealing with building smart, sustainable industries and small businesses that can actually get on with building their communities and actually contributing to the lives of their friends and neighbors. So, absolutely, we believe that we need to be sensible, we need to be practical, and we need to put small business first.
Okay, very good. So the next question that I'll entertain is for the Liberal Party. Does someone have one that they would like to ask?
45 seconds, so I'll try to be quick. It was interesting in the debate last night when NDP leader Jack Layton on the immigration topic mentioned how Canada is having a problem keeping up populating its population. Whether you agree with the issue or not, 100,000 abortions are performed in this country every year. Whether you agree with the procedure and how it's legalized or not, it's 100,000. If you look back to 1984 when it was officially legalized, 100,000 times a year back to 1984. That's an awful lot of unborn humans that we can't employ anymore. Just something for the NDP to consider as they're a major proponent of it. To the Liberals, you're sounding more and more like the NDP every day. To be honest, and I think as Mr. Richardson said about these nasty corporations that you keep talking about, they employ thousands in this province that you live in and I live in. Your party had no problem taking donations from those same nasty corporations for years until the donations were cut off from corporations. I don't recall the Liberal Party ever standing up saying, we will not accept donations from corporations anymore, when the law was in effect.
Question, please. Yeah, I would ask that...
Yeah. No, I had 45 seconds. I timed it.
No, but I would ask that we make questions,
Okay, fair
not
enough.
political statements, okay?
Fair enough.
Thank you.
So I guess how now can your party stand and call for no more tax reductions to corporations in this country when you voted in favor in 07 and 09 and they employ thousands of people all across Alberta?
Thank you for the question. One of the things I learned by going to law school is about corporate law and about an obligation of a corporation to its shareholders. In fact, I'll tell a quick story, but Henry Ford wanted to pay his workers a lot of money, and he said he did it so they could buy his cars. And he was sued by his shareholders because that is not what a corporation is allowed to do. A corporation must work within the parameters that they have. They look to the guidance and regulation and enforcement of regulations by the government. I did not call them nasty corporations. I think that was Mr. Richardson who called them that. Again, the donations by corporations was stopped by Mr. Chrétien. It was the Liberals who stopped corporations from being able to make donations to political parties. So I'd just like to correct the record on that as well.
Can I actually have an extra few seconds to address the abortion issue that was directed at me as well?
That's fine.
Absolutely.
You have about 30 seconds.
Okay, perfect. Not very many extra seconds. I'll take it. The NDP is absolutely supportive of the woman's right to choose. We think it's fundamental to women's rights and it needs to be protected. With regards to corporations are not evil. They are absolutely not evil, but at the same time, we have bigger issues to take care of in Canada than making sure that multi-billion-dollar corporations get more money. I think the NDP has consistently refused to take corporate donations. We've always refused to take them, and we will never change that policy. We can't now, and we wouldn't have if we could. So because I only have 30 seconds, I'll let that go.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you. I'll just mention quickly that as a matter of principle, the Green Party of Canada never has taken corporate donations. Even if there were changes to the regulatory environment, we would not, because ultimately it is people that matter, and build smart communities and build our true democracy that we need in this country. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make a point that I just don't see separating small business from large business. It's all of those that create the jobs, that pay the salaries, employ the people, that give us money to pay taxes to support the social programs that we all have enjoyed in this country. But there has to be someone to pay the bills, and it's a very competitive global economy. We have reduced taxes to business, also to individuals. We have the lowest tax rates now that we've had. If you haven't done your taxes yet, you'll probably find a family of 4 in Calgary will pay $3,000 less tax this year than they did last year with given the same incomes. In any event, that's something I want to make. That, we don't wish to play one off against the other. We have to have the balance. We feel like the Conservative Party has struck a better balance in terms of revenues in and revenues out.
Thank you, and we'll allow you to continue very shortly. Could we have a question for the Conservative Party, please?
One of the things you mentioned earlier was this apathy that we are starting to see in Calgary. Actually has one of the lowest voter turnouts in the country, and it's been slowly going down. I just wonder, I feel that's alarming to our democracy, and hopefully you agree. And I was wondering how you as an individual will try to re-engage those voters and bring them back to the table so that they can be part of our wonderful country. Thank you.
Well, obviously, I think I cherish the right to vote, and
In the travels I've done, I saw far too many instances where people haven't been, and that's not a good thing. I'm not as concerned about people here who don't vote. I tend to take a rather glasses half full approach to it. I think we have had larger turnouts for voting when people were angry about things, when there was something they wanted to change. They were unhappy with the current state of affairs or the current elected official or government that was serving them. The percentage of my vote has gone up, but the numbers of voters have either remained the same or in fact even gone down. I don't think that any of that. I mean, I ask people about it, and they're just simply content. On the one hand, they think you're doing a good job. You're going to win anyway. I mean, this is what people say to me. Do I have to get out and vote? I think if there was a reason for them to be upset with what they're doing, we'd probably have a larger voter turnout.
Thank you, David. I guess the question of voter apathy does speak to a larger concern about the health of our democracy. When we look at voter turnouts declining precipitously election after election, when we look at more and more people tuning out of the discussion ahead of time, I guess the question people ask as they think about elections year by year is, does my voice actually count? And I'm running this election because I believe it does, absolutely. Your voice is important to me. Every voice in this riding is important in this election, and that's why I encourage you to come out, tell your friends and neighbors, this is a right people have fought and died to preserve, and by goodness, this is important to me. I hope it's as important to you as it is to me.
First thing, a lot of people feel that their vote doesn't count, as we heard from the Green candidate. We need to change our electoral system. Every vote should count and everyone should be represented. The Greens should have some representation in the House. There's no reason a party that has 900,000 votes gets no representation. I disagree with Mr. Richardson when it says that it's okay that people don't vote. Voting is power. We have to take it back. Democracy is worth fighting for. People have fought for it, given their lives for it, and we need people to show up. So I absolutely think it's important that we restore our civility to our House of Commons, because people have tuned out politicians out because they act like kindergartners. And it's time that we actually had some civility brought to the House so people can communicate rather than yell.
I'm going to speak quickly if I can, but there is a whole part of the platform around democratic renewal. It is a serious problem, and when we rely on our friends who talk to us and send us information, that is not a way to run a country. We need to bring back our long-form census. We need to respect our scientists. We need to make available the information that the government is collecting so the people can use that. We have paid to collect that information. So the Liberals have a plan to have what they call open data, Canada has fallen behind in this area during Mr. Harper's regime, if I use that word. And we need to be able to make the information that the government collects available to the business people to use it to generate wealth. We need to make available all of the information, freedom of information requests so that other people can see those. And we need to make available all of the funding that is given in government so that it is a transparent use of the public's money and people can see where their money is going. Those are 3 of the planks.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. And now, a question for the Green Party.
So many Canadians signed a petition regarding usage-based billing for the internet and saying that they were overcharged for internet access. And as we know, Canadians are one of the most highly wired people in the world, and so using the internet is very popular and is just growing. And I was wondering how the Green Party would ensure that access to the internet remains fair and accessible to Canadians.
As part of a very wired generation myself, I can tell you that having information available in front of me on my personal computer, on my BlackBerry, which I see more than I care to admit these days, having that information flow at a cost that does not break the bank is critical to so many Canadians. And so absolutely, the Green Party and myself personally, we support the Open Media campaign to ensure the data is available and that people are not overcharged for their internet services. If it's an all-you-can-eat service, sell it as an all-you-can-eat service. If you are offering a budget plan that does meter your data service over the course of the month, then don't overcharge for extra megabytes of information. Be fair, transparent, and open about how you're billing to Canadians. People are intelligent enough to make the right decision based on how they use the internet in the first place. And I think it's just a matter of showing fundamental respect to your customers, because that is a key to succeeding in a business big or small.
Yeah, obviously, we all wish we would be able to have the best service at the lowest price. It's a difficult area simply because it's growing so fast and moves so quickly, and the cost of implementation of new services, bandwidth, and that sort of thing is so expensive. It precludes startups of competing firms to keep the price down. In a free market, if someone was charging too much or gouging for their service, another company would come along and offer it at a more reasonable cost. That's how the market works. This one is difficult because it often has regulation involved in it as well. It's a difficult problem, but I think we're working through it. I know that the House of Commons generally, not just any one party, has done a lot of work trying to resolve these problems as an ongoing issue. It's not going to go away. It's going to get even more difficult as we get more technical.
Thank you.
The NDP actually took a very clear stand that we are against usage-based billing. We fought hard against it, and thankfully the Conservatives went and forced the CRTC essentially to reconsider their decision. We also absolutely support net neutrality. We believe it should be entrenched into the law, that there should never be an issue with neutrality of our internet, and that it's not fair that net throttling should ever occur, as net throttling should occur either. Are we getting gouged by a lot of our companies, and we got to make sure that doesn't happen, and we've got to make sure that information is free and available, and it shouldn't be something that is something that can be made a significant amount of money off of. Thank you. Jenna?
This is an area that's close to my heart, and I think it's because it basically comes down to freedom. We see what happened in Egypt and how the use of the internet and the ability to load broadband of video, what that meant to the freedom of the people there. This is a freedom issue, and what we should be looking at is not political decisions because people screamed about it. We should look at value-based decisions. The people who are using broad bandwidth right now include creators, people who are innovators, and also people who are illiterate and are not able to access technology more easily. And if any of you are starting to come on the internet, you'll realize you're going to use a lot more broadband when you start than when you end, because you can realize the difference. If we want our country to be intelligent and creative and to move forward and to be more free and to break the status quo. A free internet and looking at this, the issues of net neutrality and the charging for bandwidth is going to be one of those value-based issues that is going to drive freedom in this country. It's very important.
Thank
the
you.
Liberal Party supports it too. Glad, good for me.
Okay, maybe now a question for the NDP.
Mostly a question actually for the Conservatives and the NDP, and it has to do with Senate reform. I'm hoping that whoever gets voted in, what are the steps required to make this happen, I guess, is because Alberta really wants and needs it.
Seen that the Conservatives say one thing and then do another. They've actually stacked the Senate, and they've with unelected senators, and they're actually out campaigning with Conservatives. Actually, some of them are running for office even. And so I think that's not exactly the best way for our system to work. I think what we need to do is we need to look at options such as even abolishing the Senate. There's no reason that a Senate we're paying millions of dollars for people to come to work for a few days a year and actually stopping some really important legislation getting passed. We've seen that legislation regarding HIV, drugs going to Africa has actually been slowed in the Senate. These types of things can't happen in an elected Senate. Of course, it's better, I would say, in an unelected Senate. I absolutely believe that an elected Senate would be better than an unelected Senate, but what's better than that is no Senate at all.
The Liberal Party does not have positions talking about abolition of the Senate or on electoral reform. They believe that it's something that needs to go to the people to be discussed, and that the model that we're going to move to would come from the people. What I can say about it is, it seems to be a House of Parliament or a House of our government that didn't have much use until we had a Parliament that was running roughshod over with putting a number of hidden bills into budget bills. And then the Senate was a place of sober second thought. And the Senate actually did go out and talk to the people. So all governments have built-in checks and balances. Whatever is going to happen in the future with the Senate, it should still be able to be a check and balance on unfettered power of the Parliament.
Thank you.
Our position is and remains for a Triple-A Senate that is elected, effective, and equal. The Conservative governments have been the only governments in Canadian history to appoint so-called elected senators. The closest we can do is to appoint someone who has been elected by the people. This has only happened in one place. This has happened in Alberta. It happened under the Mulroney government when the people of Alberta in a provincial election, at the time of a provincial election, elected Stan Waters to be the next appointee from Alberta. The federal government, the Prime Minister appoints senators. That is the Constitution. To do anything differently, you would require an amendment to the Constitution. An amendment to the Constitution is a very big deal. We know what we went through at Meech Lake and all that previously. It requires the approval of all the provinces and the government. We'll move to that point, but in the meantime, we suggested elect senators regionally, and we can choose from those elected senators as it is now or has been in the past. It has been patronage appointments. I think it's important that people understand this. The only other one that we did was Bert Brown, who was elected by Albertans to go to the Senate. So he's a standing candidate for the Senate. So when a vacancy came up in Alberta, when one of the Liberal appointments retired or reached the age of 75, an appointment came up. The normal practice would be to appoint another party member or some stalwart in the community. Stephen Harper didn't do that. His first choice, his first appointment to the Senate was Bert Brown, who was elected by the people of Alberta. Now, there have been additional vacancies in the Senate as they've occurred. There's been nobody to replace them with who had been elected. So the reason we stacked the Senate is because these were vacancies that had to be filled by the Constitution.
Very good. William?
That's his job. All right, Senate reform always is a pertinent topic in Alberta especially. And certainly when we think of the one senator who took up his duties and described them as taskless thanks, What it comes down to is that constitutionally and practically we do need an upper chamber in our parliamentary system. It's the way it works. There are tweaks, there are mechanisms we can explore to make the Senate more effective, more responsive, to put it back to work for Canadians. But as far as the Green Party is concerned, every option is on the table at this stage.
Now maybe a question for the Liberal Party.
1 billion human beings on this planet live on under $1.25 a day. They live in extreme poverty. Their children die of malnutrition and of diseases that can be cured for pennies. But recent changes to the aid budget have made it very difficult to keep our commitments, to keep our programs to help the extremely poor. What would you do to restore Canada's leadership in this area?
I'm going to have to say I first don't know what the funding commitments are of the Liberal Party. But I know that the position of the Liberal Party has been that we should work toward the commitments that we made for our percent of GDP, so that we try to approach that target. I know that there are no increased funding from the levels that I've seen, because everything in our platform is costed, and I looked at the lines. But I do know that there are intentions to expand the support for Canadians who go abroad, and to increase funding for Canadians who go abroad to assist in foreign countries in our platform. I know that's not the same as offering the aid to the country themselves. But as a person who worked in Africa, and I've had, in fact, the High Commissioner of Nigeria come to me and speak about the considerable loss of confidence they feel about Canada and our role with Africa. That our role with Africa is one of the first steps that we would be looking to improve and solidify. I know that's not where all of the need is in this world, but I do know that the Harper government, by stepping away from Africa, was stepping away from great needs and some of the people who have founded this country too.
We have a commitment to 0.7% of our GDP to overseas development, and we haven't gotten there. We didn't get there under the Liberals, and we didn't get there under the Conservatives. The only way we're going to get there is if the NDP gets elected. Our plan is to put through $500 million so we can actually get to the 0.7% that we've committed to, and continue to go from there. So there needs to be a significant commitment from our government to get there. It needs to be a priority. We've spent, billions, $10 billion on tax cuts. I think we can afford to try to help out elsewhere. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Mark has to a certain extent stolen my thunder, but I can assure you that the Green Party of Canada is also committed to restoring international aid funding to 0.7% of our GDP, and we are committed to making poverty history in Canada and worldwide.
Mr. Hamilton has just said that we're committed to restore it to 0.7%. It was a noble goal, but we never got there. This was a commitment of the Mulroney government to the international community, that we would, along with the Western Industrialized nations, try to bring our commitment to foreign aid to 0.7%. It was about 0.2% when we made that commitment about 22 years ago. During the Mulroney government, that increased to about 0.45%. In the ensuing 10 years of Liberal government, it dropped back down to 0.2%. In fairness, there were deficits being run. Mr. Martin was doing what he could to balance the budgets, and that was just one thing that was cut. Since the Harper government has been in place, international aid funding has increased every year since we have been in government, and will continue to increase next year.
Could I just ask what it's at now? What percentage? Do you know?
Well, I'd have to think just from knowing the amount that we've been putting in increasing. I think that, of course, the economy has been growing too, and that's a difficult thing. I'm speaking in the increase in terms of real dollars, actual dollars, in terms of the percentage of the economy, I would guess it's probably around 4, maybe 0.4.
Question for the PCs?
I'd like to, if I can, shift the conversation a little bit from platforms to values and how we make our decisions. And so I really think that what we value and what we, how we come to understand why some of the most pressing social issues that we have exist really shapes the strategies that we'll use to address those concerns. And so I'm curious, Ms. Richardson, if you can provide some insight into, you mentioned before 2 things that you were talking about in this riding are crime and homelessness, and I'm wondering if you can speak to, aside from party, why do you personally believe that crime and homelessness exist in our community?
Well, that's a different spin. You want me to, how they exist, why they exist?
I want you to, yeah, if you can clarify, because I really think that our understanding of why these problems exist inform how we choose to address solving them. And for me, how we solve them is what the parties are talking about, but I want to have some more insight into why you think these problems exist in the first place.
Well, I think it goes to the heart of why we're all involved in this, and that is some are better able to care for themselves than others is one thing. I think we could take them separately. On homelessness, I think the much of what I have found and what has caused me to be more concerned is that it becomes a treadmill. It becomes a lock-in. There are people that have some mental instability. They may have a difficult stress situation, coping with things. They will drop out of society temporarily, can't deal with this, with how it is. And rather than get proper attention immediately, tend to drift. They become vulnerable. We've seen this happen. They are preyed upon by other members of society, particularly drug dealers and that sort of thing. They get locked into a habit, and they remain homeless. They're not able to break out of it. This goes on through poverty in a number of areas where it's a different, well, let me say, I think the way we're addressing it is simply to try to deal with the immediacy of the thing, to get people into homes, to give them a space where they can feel safe and secure. If there's individuals or families, a single mom with a child, to give them a place where they can be safe and just almost collect their thoughts till they can get themselves back on their feet and provide necessities to enable them to do that. And that's, I think, the root of what we were doing at Homeless Foundation, to try to identify the reasons why people become homeless in the first place and deal with the causes. We've been very successful. We've placed 3,600 units since we started the program. The federal government has, into the Homeless Foundation alone, I have the numbers here because I thought it'd be interesting to people. We've made dramatic, Calgary Homeless Foundation alone this year received $17 million from the federal government to assist in these programs. And we're working with all of the agencies in Calgary. It's a great community effort that has brought people together. Provincial, federal, and civic government, as well as many groups like CUPS and others that have done it. Thanks.
Good. William?
Thank you, David. I have to give credit to Wheat for mentioning the work that Tim Richter and the Calgary Homeless Foundation have done over the past 4 years to work on their 10-year plan to eliminate homelessness in Calgary. They're in year 4 now. And the Green Party of Canada definitely supports local initiatives, and we would actually take it to the next level and generate funding on the order of $3.8 billion nationwide over the next 3 years to support affordable housing construction, community housing, and affordable housing retrofits across this country to make sure that we can actually put people in housing first and put Calgary-Centre first to build the community for everyone.
Well, you asked about something that's beyond the platform. Now, let me give you an example of where kind of homelessness, it's a very complex It's very complex, and it's not one solution or one cause of it. An example of that is actually in my own life. I was raised by a single mom, and we lived in Newfoundland, and unfortunately my mom lost her job. So we ended up having to move out here, and we didn't have a house when we moved here. We got lucky, we had an uncle who could put us in a house, but then my mom continued, she found a job, but after a while she lost her job again, and we were within weeks of actually being out of our house. And my mom is fantastic. She's worked 2-3 jobs at a time to try to keep a roof over our head, and not everyone's successful at that. And once you end up on the street, it's so difficult to get off of it.
I'll speak to the values part that you asked about. I think that the inherent value of every person is not acknowledged in some of the things that are done. And so that basic equality of a right to health care, to mental health care, to high quality education, to a working wage, those things contribute to people having different types of issues. Illiteracy is one of those issues. And I'm just going to say that I disagree with Mr. Harper, but I also didn't realize until a little while ago that I was homeless when I was young too. That my mother, is a playwright, and we used to go camping for 3 months of every year. My mom took us out of school for June. We'd go camping for June, July, and August. One year, we didn't have a house, so we just had all the animals, 6 kids, lived in the tent for the 3 months. You don't, when you're doing those things, you don't think that you're homeless. It's just that you can't afford a house, and you wouldn't have one at the time. So, yes, there are many different parts of the values, but I'm going to speak to the person who's here from the mayor's office. And I just want to speak about infrastructure, because one of the things that the Liberals said that they're going to do, which I do have concerns about, which is cutting the infrastructure funding. But it is a classic example for politicians of values. The money that's being cut from public-private partnerships, which in this city would build community rec centers, is going to be redirected to affordable housing. Okay? Now that's an example of a politician having to make a decision. If you only have that much money, should it go to affordable housing or to those rec centers? I'm saying affordable housing tonight. Just want you to know.
Very good. Now, I think it's the Green Party's turn for the next question, but I've lost track. Can someone help me out here? Yeah.
My question tonight is around nuclear safety and management of the nuclear resources in Canada. There's a lot of fear in this world about what's going on, the crisis in Japan, and recently in Canada, some of the issues they had in Chalk River. And I'm wondering how your party approaches nuclear safety and nuclear management.
Well, of course, given what's happened in Japan recently, nuclear safety is a very important question to resolve. We at the Green Party look at nuclear fission reactors as a legacy technology. I mean, you think back to the Manhattan Project in the Second World War that actually made atomic power possible for civilian use in addition to its other applications. But you look at the infrastructure, you look at the mass of the structures you have to build to generate atomic power based on the technology we have. It's tough to justify sinking that amount of money into a piece of work that is going to break down in 40 or 50 years, and that's presuming, of course, that you're not along a fault line. Now, we do need research reactors. We do need reactors that will breed radioisotopes for medical use. And absolutely, we would encourage using these facilities to see if we can find alternative energy sources that build on what we've learned from nuclear fission. But in terms of what we've got now, you look at trying to dispose of nuclear waste right now, dropping it 2 miles down beneath the Canadian Shield and hoping no one notices isn't the best possible way of dealing with the situation. We have to think beyond nuclear power. We have to use the tools we've got, use what we've learned, and hope we can come up with something better
something more sustainable, something that will actually be safer and cleaner for everyone?
Well, we have had a lot of new interest in nuclear. Nobody wants to talk about it these days after the earthquakes in Japan. Canada has a different form. We have a CANDU reactor. It's a different form, a much safer form, certainly than the reactors that we have seen with significant difficulties in the past, whether that be Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island or what's happened in Japan. I don't think, obviously, it can ever be completely safe, and that's the major focus of people today. Every time we have one of these, we increase our diligence when a new electrical plant or nuclear plant is requested. I learned more about this when we had overtures from an Alberta company to build nuclear plants in northern Alberta. The purpose of these was to add to the electrical grid, but also for use in the oil sands for in situ production of the oil. This would be pumping heat underground and actually doing most of the work underground, so it would limit and reduce carbon emissions, and there would be no tailings ponds or any of that surface destruction. It was an idea that was carefully considered. They were able to raise sufficient funds to get the project going. When they came to Ottawa, we went to the Atomic Energy Commission of Canada. It had been so long since anyone had approached them. They didn't have people that could really deal with the questions in it, and the technology has moved along so quickly. If they can do what they say they can do, and they can provide a safe form, it really is quite environmentally sound as well as a cheap source of energy in the big picture. Oil and gas is going to run out eventually. But the one thing I agree with you is that we still haven't found the solution for dealing with cement reactors and what you do with that.
I think our Green Canada is actually quite on track with this one. Nuclear reactors, they technically are still part of our energy supply, and they tend to produce a little bit cleaner energy than, for example, coal. But at the same time, it's the amount of waste that's produced, it takes forever, to break down. And there are some risks involved, of course, as we see in Tokyo, we've seen in Chernobyl, we've seen in 3 Mile Island. There are risks involved, but what we want to do is we want to move more towards a green energy that can produce jobs through green jobs, and that can actually promote something that doesn't have a half-life of thousands of years and leaves it for our children, our grandchildren, and grandchildren's children. It's just not fair.
I was one of those people that used to have to go under my desk and practice for the nuclear bomb when I was young, and so it's an area that seems always frightening to me, but it's an area that I was taught about how Canada had the CANDU reactor that was supposed to be safer, and that we had an amazing industry we had developed in Canada. Right now, the Conservatives are in a position where they're looking to sell that off at fire sale prices, and others will make profits off this technology. And so I have to say, this is an important issue in this election, and it's an important issue also because the privatization and the fire sale of this corporation is just one example of what the Conservative government is planning as a way to short-term balance books. We want to maintain this industry, but it does need to have serious regulation, and I personally don't believe we should ever approve a plant until we have a disposal plan for the waste that's going to be coming out of there. There is none now. It's supposed to be somewhere in the shield that they're going to bury it, but until you have that spot, you should not start building the next reactors.
Thank you.
Medical isotopes is an area where the rest of the world was counting on Canada, and we let our partners down in not providing isotopes. And then Mr. Harper fired Linda Keane before she could speak about the lack of safety in our reactors that we have now, which was the beginning of a pattern of behavior which is a reason that he should not be our next Prime Minister.
I have a question that comes to everyone, for all the candidates, from Twitter, from someone who can't be here tonight. And that question is, if elected, how would each of you make a difference for the riding within your party?
I am elected, and this will be the 4th election in this constituency. I try to represent the views of my riding. For the most part, they have been compatible with the views of my party. I think that's probably why I'm re-elected as a Conservative. We have taken additional initiatives, as I said earlier, with regard to some issues like street crime, like homelessness, and about improving education at the post-secondary level here in trying to bring support to our post-secondary institutions. I brought along a list of all of the additions we've made at the University of Calgary, Mount Royal University, SAIT, and the Alberta College of Art to engage young people and to get them working.
Well, I can tell you that I am running because I want to turn Calgary-Centre green and give Calgary-Centre the attention that you deserve. I mean, it's time to put Calgary-Centre first. It's time to start building smarter and more sustainable industry in Calgary so that we can get beyond, we can go from turning energy into the end of what Calgary is, into a new beginning.
Any comments from the right wing over here?
Being called the far right kind of scares me a little.
You're on my left.
That's good. Obviously, I'm not a candidate, so I'm probably not going to be elected in this riding. But the NDP is historically, the NDP has actually been very, very strong constituency MPs. For example, Peter Stauffer is historically, he's an NDP MP for Musquodoboit Valley in Nova Scotia, and he's consistently been voted the best constituency MP, and he's one of our proud MPs. And the NDP obviously doesn't win votes quickly in Alberta, so we have to keep maintaining them. So if we win, we have to be out there door knocking, talking to people all the time, so we can make sure we get re-elected, and we don't take our votes for granted.
Since there are no conservatives, there are only Conservatives representing Calgary, that it would make a significant impact to the Liberal Party to actually have someone from Calgary in their midst. I think that Calgarians, and I consider myself one of them who has more of a drive to be productive, more of a drive for change, more of a need to work hard, it seems. And I think that attitude would be brought to politics. The difference in our party is I would not be silent. I would advocate for bringing the ideas from Calgarians, not my own, well, some of them might be my own, but the ideas of Calgarians and the issues of Calgarians, and putting them at the center, not just of the party, which obviously needs it, but also at the center of the discussions in Canada. Canada is being driven by an engine that's right here in this city, and we don't have a voice. And we don't have a voice inside the Liberal Party, an elected voice inside the Liberal Party, and I do make distinctions there too. And we don't have a voice, as we saw even in the debates last night, not one question from Alberta. There should have been a Calgarian there, and it shows how they've taken us for granted. And again,
thank you.
I'm just going to thank the mayor because he's doing a good job to some extent.
All right, very good.
Not inside the Liberal Party, I'm going to say, but getting it to the centre of Canada.
Next question will be for the Green Party.
Actually, there's another question out from Twitter. Actually, our mayor brought up this in an article, I think a week. Basically, it's a question for all the candidates. You might have known we were building a tunnel, among other things. How are your parties going to fund urban agenda?
Absolutely. The Green Party is committed to the urban agenda. I am committed to the urban agenda. You look at all the infrastructure that's not getting built because No one is bringing it to Ottawa's attention that we need a helping hand to get these things done. You look at the Airport Trail Tunnel, you look at getting the Southeast LRT done from the bus barns through into the downtown core, you look at getting the light rail transit system underground through Stephen Avenue. All of these projects are big ticket items. The city is doing everything it can to get things done. It's gone cap in hand to the province numerous times. Basically, the mayor these days is kind of like a player for the New York Titans, trying to get to the till to make sure he can actually cash his game paycheck before the teller closes the window. But we need a partner at the table in Ottawa who actually gets transit, who gets cities, who understands that we have all these projects we need to roll out and get done, if not right this minute, then over the next few years, to make sure that we can move our citizens to where they need to go, help them function in our democracy, and be a part of the strong community that we need. So absolutely, that's why we need to put Calgary-Centre first in this election and get the urban agenda back on the table in Ottawa.
We have done that. We've been doing that throughout the infrastructure program. Much of the time it took to get the infrastructure program in place was consultations with local communities. We started with the provinces. We did joint deals with the province to expand the capital base of the funding, but also to address local issues. What was important to the people here? We did, in the last 2 years, contribute $90 million to Calgary Transit. That was a decision of the previous City Council to build the west leg. It happened to be through my constituency, so I was able to present a check for $90 million on behalf of the federal government to help that project. We also contributed with the province. The federal government contributed $100 million for the Calgary Ring Road. That again was a priority of the city. We provided the funds, but left the decision making on which projects they wanted to fund, a tunnel or a LRT, to the city of Calgary. I think the federal government has more than done their share in supporting Calgary Transit and the roadways.
Thank you.
Some of you may know Jack Layton. Before he became leader of the NDP, he was actually a city councillor in Toronto. He was also the president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And we've made it very important that in our agenda we have a national transit program. So what we've proposed is to offer a cent off the gas tax to the cities, so that we can actually ensure that they do have some of the funding that they need to actually put in the transit system that we need, and to maintain some of the infrastructure that we desperately require, such as some of the roads. I was lucky that I did get to work with Naheed Nenshi on his campaign, and I'm proud that Calgary is proving itself to be a city that has progressive ideas and has a desire to move towards a less sprawling city, more towards one that's ran by transit.
Thank you.
The Conservative government had a giant opportunity to invest in urban infrastructure. There was an economic stimulus plan which had no plan, and which the money was cast around the country, literally, for fixing roofs or changing doorknobs and doing things. There was no strategic plan. There should have been, at that time in our history, was a time to grab something like urban transit and work with the cities, creating jobs, creating something, an infrastructure that would be a publicly held infrastructure for the future. The Conservatives have continued to look at private partnership models, which in fact will result in you being user feed to death, and will affect access of people in the future to public institutions that are paid with public money to some extent, and then privatized to the extent that you have user fees. The Liberals are committed to the transit, but I agree with Mayor Nenshi when I said that this election is about supporting people, building communities, and looking to the future. It was pretty slim pickings when I got building communities, and the money has to be part of a budget and a plan with cities, and should not be controlled in the way that the Conservatives did, the amount of controls that they had on the monies that they were releasing. Mr. Martin, I believe, was the first Prime Minister who said that cities should be at our table, a federal table. And he invited them in, and it is part of the thinking of the Liberal Party and the Liberal government in the past, that infrastructure of our cities is important as a federal issue. And our tunnel, I'm just going to say, there are people in this city now who are paying a price because our authority has been given, which is not to be celebrated, to an airport authority which has not held up their end of the deal. And Mr. Richardson himself has said that it's out of his hands.
I think we're out of time here.
I'm just going to say,
please.
Irresponsible downloading of authority.
Thank you. Okay, one more question for tonight. What are the Conservatives doing to help our hardworking veterans? These folks are living in poverty and rely on food banks.
Well, we have increased veterans pensions, veterans programs substantially in the last 2 years. I thought this was pretty widely known. But in addition to that, most of the veterans that we're speaking of, at least until Afghanistan, are seniors. And we have never seen a larger increase in programs for seniors in the past 2 years. In the current budget, the programs for seniors were a major thrust of the current budget. Everything from increasing, many of the veterans we talked about are on guaranteed income supplement. Certainly those in my constituency, the veterans that are seniors on guaranteed income supplement. We've raised the guaranteed income supplement in the budget by $840 a year. It's only $70 a month, but when you speak to these people, it's just a little bit that really helps them kind of keep going and keep up with increases to their cost of living. It's been a major thrust. I'm sorry I didn't bring my brochure tonight that's particularly dedicated to seniors, because I have been spending most of my mornings for the past 2 weeks visiting seniors' residences, and they've been very pleased with the progress we've made and what was proposed in the budget that was not passed 3 weeks ago.
Well, certainly it occurs to me that supporting our veterans is part of a larger picture of reducing poverty in Calgary by introducing a strategic vision and the tools to implement that vision directly, to help support Calgarians through economic insecurity, a lack of skills and training, an inability to meet basic needs, compromised physical and mental health, and a lack of participation in society. We need to get these people back in the loop, back on the grid, and I think we just have to make a point that Vibrant Communities Calgary has done a lot of work on this file over the past few years to make sure that everyone who is facing the threat of poverty is starting to get that support that they need, and that does include the veterans who especially need our help.
It is shocking that people who put their lives on the line to protect our country are facing poverty. And in Canada, we actually have issues with clawbacks of the veterans' benefits, that those kind of clawbacks need to be dealt with. There's no reason that our veterans should ever have to pay back any of the money that they're ever receiving. We need to make sure that SISIP, which is their pension program, the security program for the injured vets, that's funded properly. Right now it isn't. And the NDP's also proposed that we need to look into the use of the fumigation in Gagetown. That's a huge issue that a lot of veterans are facing in terms of health, and it's amazing that could be an issue that was caused by our own people. And I think it's important that we do have a systematic view and look at a review of that particular program that would happen.
The Conservatives have a horrible record on this. There was a Colonel Pat Stogram, the Veterans Affairs Ombudsman, for strongly advocating for veterans and for talking about how inappropriate it was to be giving lump sum payments to veterans. He was fired by the Conservative government. Maybe he was paid off, I'm not sure. But
you said he's mentally ill?
So anyway, the issue of the person's health is an issue because the violation of the person's rights were at issue. And again, it goes to conduct and to placing people who disagree with the government in compromised situations where it's very difficult for them to defend themselves. But on the issue of pensions, there currently is a lump sum. There's a maximum of $276,000 a veteran could get for a disability, and the average that's being given is $38,000. The veterans are very concerned about that. They have no union. They have no ability to act other than going through their ombudsman or from those senior retired veterans who have taken up their cause. The Liberal Party has, as part of its learning mandate, to fund 4 years of education, including tuition and books, for veterans that have returned from service or ones who are honorably discharged. I think that speaks very strongly to the support the Liberals would give. In addition, if a soldier is unable to complete that, his or her spouse may be able to use that education fund.
Okay. I think that's going to be it for this evening, except for one thing. I'm going to do a little bit, which we haven't stuck to, but I think Lee had something he wanted to offer with regards to a statement that Jennifer just made.
We've had it through everything.
Okay.
It's just, these are the stock lines they throw out and ask people to believe them. It's simply not true. This is the second time I wanted to comment on that.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and I am really appreciative of the fact that we kept our questions civilized and respectful, and you are to be congratulated for that. There's coffee and there's refreshments over in the corner here. Maybe we can have an informal continuation of the debate.